Australians and Brits are secretly very, very different people. I've lived in Australia for over a year and a half now. I've been with an Australian for over 6 years, and I thought I knew a lot about the two cultures. It turns out I was wrong. Like how Australians start a conversation versus how Brits do it, or the very different ways the two cultures show love. So in this video today, I'm going to walk you through the 6 secret differences between Australians and British people. Most people aren't going to tell you, and I'm really excited for this one. Hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of rebuilding life in beautiful Australia. Difference number 1, the humour looks the same, but it isn't. On the surface, Brits and Aussies both love banter. They both love poking fun at each other, and we both love an excuse to laugh at the other person's expense. Both cultures can take a joke as well as they can dish one out, but the mechanism between the way the two cultures tell the joke is very different. Now, I found that British humour is fundamentally deadpan. So deadpan, sometimes you don't know whether they're being serious or whether they're joking. I often get this criticism, you could say, a lot, and I will say something ironic. Very deadpan, the way I'm used to with friends and family back in the UK. But with Aussies, there's this sort of, wait, are you being serious? And that's something I experience quite a lot. And I have to say, oh no, I'm so sorry, I was just joking. Whereas Aussie humour, they are very, very good at deadpan sarcasm, might I say. But there's a warmer tone. When something's a joke, there's usually a little bit more of a signal there. A sort of twinkle in the eyes, or a slight smile, or a slight intonation in the voice. Anyway, that mismatch has caused far too many awkward moments than I'd like to admit, especially when I've said something I thought was quite funny. Around Australians, no one's laughed, and I thought, I'm an idiot. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, consider hitting that like button down below. Really helps to support the channel. Next one, difference number 2, texting and the final goodbye. It's dramatic. Now, it's really important I mention that British people almost always put kisses at the end of a text message. Maybe if you're a guy, you might not do it towards the lads, right? But to my dad and to my brothers, I'll often put kisses. So it's not like a gender specific thing. You send kisses to people that you have a close relationship with. So family and close friends, you almost always put 1, 2, and in some cases 5 to 10 kisses depending on how much you love that person. Now, this might sound very high school, but when you're dating someone in the UK, if they're British, you will often put kisses to each other in a text message. And if your default with that person is like 3 to 5 kisses, but you only send 1 kiss back, be prepared for them to be furious at you and very offended. And this might sound like a joke, but sometimes it really is that dramatic. Someone will send 1 kiss back to you and you're used to 3 or 4 or 5, and you'll think, what have I done wrong? Have I upset this person? And sometimes you have. But this was very jarring when I started dating my Australian wife, Maddie. She wouldn't send any kisses back to me. And thankfully, we avoided some of this confusion because this was from the get-go. So I just assumed, she's not the sort of girl who typically sends kisses back to people she talks to. But then as I, started dating Maddie and we got closer, she told me that generally Aussies don't do this quite often. Now, of course, you might be Australian watching this, you might send kisses to people via text message, but I've found generally in the country, the typical consensus is that it's not really a thing, which I find so interesting. So this has completely rewired how I write text messages. I've got a British brain for when I'm texting British friends and family, and I've got an Australian brain for when I'm texting Aussie friends and family. But you'll be glad to know there is a social cue that both cultures always sync up on, and it is the never-ending goodbye. You know, when you've been out to a birthday party or a meal at a restaurant, and people are paying the bill, getting up, getting their car keys, ready to walk out the door. It's clear everyone's signaling that it's the end of the event, we're all going home. Well, what you then do is you stand up, maybe near the door or in the car park, and you proceed to have another 10, 15 minute, maybe an hour long conversation, which is the goodbye conversation. Brits do it, Aussies do it, and honestly, I just think it's really funny that both cultures are the exact same with this. Now, topics like this are something that I cover in my weekly newsletter that's only a 2-minute read, sent weekly to your inbox. There's no spam at all whatsoever. So if you're interested, there's a QR code for you to scan there if you're on TV, or you can use the link in the top of the description below. Difference number 3, overthinking social plans. British people, and I say this as a British person, are brilliant at making very simple plans overly complicated. Someone's hosting a birthday party at a theme park. probably thinking, Sam, what are you, 15 years old? No, I just love going to theme parks. And suddenly you're thinking, what should I wear? Who's coming? Do I need to call that mate to check in about this thing? We just overdo it. We really do. Whereas with Aussies, I've noticed just from observing how my Aussie mates and relatives deal with social situations. First of all, the event is organised very simply, like a Facebook message or something. Guys, we're meeting in this park for this person's birthday. Bring your own booze, something like that. And then you just put it in your calendar and you show up. It really is that simple. Usually it's somewhere local. Usually there's plenty of parking because there is far more space in Australia than there is in the UK, at least for car parking spaces. That's what I've found. But if there's a British person hosting the event, sometimes there's like multiple group chats for it, different subgroups who are doing like, I mean, I don't drink anymore, but maybe like pre-drinks before the event or a pre-meetup. People constantly love to like almost fake being helpful. Do you need any help with this? Do you want me to like come early so I can help you set up balloons and stuff? Do you need me to do this? Do you want a cup of tea? And often we don't really mean it. We're just saying it to appear nice. And this is controversial. This might trigger a few British people and people might want to say, when I say those things, Sam, I mean them. Fair enough. But in my experience, a lot of British people, right? We say these things to be polite, but we don't really want to do them. Now, as a Brit, being back in the UK, I used to think this was thoroughness. Now I think it's just a social anxiety, wearing a bit of a costume, and Australians, they just have this attitude of, she'll be right, things will just work out. And if there is a problem, it's not going to be that bad, we'll handle it. And that's been genuinely freeing to be around. Right, now let's get into something that has completely changed how I carry myself. That's difference number 4, how Australians start a conversation. This one is hard to explain, but once I noticed it, I cannot unsee it. When British people start a conversation, there's a bit of a performance to it. We really put a lot of effort into it in the sense of too much energy. Hi, how are you, mate? Oh, it's so good to see you. I don't know if this is just because I hang out with a lot of performers, but it's this sort of, I'm gonna really actively listen to you. I'm gonna project my voice. I'm gonna sound really excited so you know that I'm happy to be here and you don't think that I'm upset with you or unhappy to be here. You're presenting the very best version of yourself. There can be a bit of a front, a bit of a polish. It's not fake, but it's not fully relaxed either. And Australians, they don't seem to really have that. It's like, hey mate, how you going? G'day. What's going on? It's much quieter. It's much calmer. There's no performance, and it instantly puts you at ease because it makes you drop the need to be like, hi, how are you? And it makes you realize, oh, I can respond in the same way. I don't have to engage my vocal folds and my diaphragm like I'm performing Shakespeare on stage, and it's lovely. I think this is one of the things I've genuinely absorbed since living here. And I think my friends and family back in the UK found it a bit jarring when I took it on. I think maybe they thought I was either very tired or unbothered. And I think I just wanted to show them that I didn't want to put on an unnecessary front all the time. Difference number 5, what you do with your free time. Australians seem to spend a lot of their time outdoors, and I don't mean that they're signing up to the Saturday park run at 7 a.m. or doing triathlons, but you only need to look at the environment in a lot of the major cities in Australia, and a lot of the cafes and pubs and bars, a lot of them have outdoor seating. What I mean by all of this is that Aussies will choose to spend more of their free time outdoors, you know, go into the local pool, having a walk around the park, a walk around the block and stop to chat with the neighbours, picking up a coffee and going for a wander down the street instead of just, you know, making one at home and watching TV all day. And there's an impulse here to really carpe diem, seize the day, a lot more than I've seen growing up in the UK, in my personal experience. And of course, the UK typically gets a lot more grey, overcast and drizzly weather. So sometimes it's not the most pleasant to go outside and do things. I totally get that. But I also think, on the other hand, it's no excuse because we can't just blame the grey sky in the UK. The UK has gorgeous countryside, beautiful architecture, gorgeous coastlines that arguably aren't actually that far from a lot of the towns and cities in the UK, with it being a very small island. There really is no shortage of beautiful and fun things to do out and about in the UK. But I must say, in British people's defence, Australia and its culture seems to nudge you a little bit more toward doing things outdoors in a way that British culture might not. I do think that British work-life balance is not as healthy as Australians. Sometimes it can be a bit harder to make a living in the UK. In the last video I uploaded, which is up there if you want to watch it after this one, we got into how wages and minimum wage in Australia is generally higher than in the UK. Maybe with the stress of, having very high rent and not making as much money as Australians and the weather not being as good, sometimes you do just want to curl up in a ball in front of the telly, and that's how I spent a lot of my time in the UK, which sadly I do regret. But if you're British or you live in the UK, I'd really encourage you, take a little trip to somewhere like Australia or Spain or, I don't know, Thailand, as long as the place is safe that you're going to experience a different way of seeing life, interacting with people and how to spend free time. I always explain to people in Australia how some Brits are at their happiest in the year when they take that 2-week abroad summer holiday, because they're finally, it's not just because they're not working, it's also because they're in a sunny environment, getting that vitamin D, going out and doing activities, going swimming in the sea, going for walks and runs, and going for coffee out and about in local towns, and you just experience a lot more of life. Right, last one, and this one's huge. Difference number 6, how we show love. Both cultures, Australia and UK, secretly show love in very different ways. Of course, love languages differ between people regardless of culture. I tend to find in my upbringing in the southwest of England that British people show their love a little bit more in actions, cooking someone a home-cooked dinner, paying for a round at the pub, or just offering to make someone a drink. But what I found with Australians is that love shows a little bit more verbally. They'll give you more compliments and affirmations like, yeah mate, go for it, you can do that. Like, I believe you can do that, mate, just give it a go. And I've also found that Aussies are a bit better at showing their love by spending quality time with you. Maybe your Aussie mates don't say much, they don't, offer you a cup of tea or anything like that, but I found that they'll sit with you. If you text them, asking them to go for a walk with you, they will. If you need a lift somewhere, they will help you. Now, neither approach is better. One culture does not show love more than the other, but recognizing the difference in this love has made me realize when I'm receiving it from both groups of people. And it's also made me a bit more intentional about how much time I spend with my loved ones, and when I actually, verbally compliment someone or encourage someone or, offer someone a cup of tea, I need to remind myself to mean it, because that's ultimately what all of these differences have come down to for me personally. They've just made me more aware, and that can make a world of difference when you're rebuilding life and building your adventure in a new country. Right, well, thanks for watching to the end of this video. YouTube thinks you're absolutely going to love the video on screen right now, so go click that. It might be your new favorite video, you never know. And a huge shout out to everyone who's already grabbed the Build Your Adventure merch. Just want to warn you, this t-shirt is so soft and lightweight, it'll probably be your favorite t-shirt ever. Seeing you guys out there in it genuinely means the world. Have an amazing one. See you in the next video.